Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale in Abuja. Now, today, we've seen the president transmit the 2023 supplementary budget, and more than what we've seen usually in the National Assembly, the way and manner that bill, the appropriation amendment, the supplementary appropriation bill was passed in both chambers of the National Assembly was quite unusual, and we'll be looking at some of the issues that have been raised in the budget, the figures, the items, and how and ways and means in which the government says it will implement this budget. We'll look into the heart of the budget, what it means for the Nigerian economy, and the proposed 2024 budget, what this one means. Of course, the president also transmitted the MTEF and all of those issues that surrounding it. Who is buying the boats, the yacht that was on it? The National Assembly said they've yanked it and they've replaced it with student loan. Who put it in the first place? What is it meant for? What about the vehicles that are supposed to be purchased? What are the responses we're getting from the federal government? The presidency is responding. The National Assembly is also talking. And we'll be looking at all of these issues. Let's get set, everyone, for this ride in these next 60 minutes of this program. But first, before we get into the deep of some of the issues on the menu tonight, let's check out some of your political write-up stories.
The Senate and the House of Representatives have passed the 2.17 trillion naira 2023 supplementary appropriation bill after third reading. Before the passage of the bill, the Senate adopted the report of the harmonized sitting of both red and green chambers on the 2023 supplementary appropriation bill as submitted by Chairman of the Appropriations Committee, Senator Solomon Olamilekan Adeola. The bill expeditiously scaled readings in both upper and lower chambers, as lawmakers say it is for the benefit of the country. The Senate has also sworn in Senator-elect for Kogi Central Senatorial District, Mrs. Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan, as a member of the 10th Senate. This followed her presentation with certificate of return by the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) as a duly elected senator for Kogi Central. Akpoti-Uduaghan is elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and joins the Red Chamber after the Court of Appeal Abuja Division upheld her election as a duly elected candidate in the Kogi Central senatorial election held earlier in February. The House of Representatives is calling on President Bola Tinubu to call political parties in Bayelsa State to order ahead of the November 11 governorship election. This is sequel to a motion of urgent public importance by Honorable Eneni Niefe, drawing the attention of the House to possible unrest in the state in the build-up to the elections, and wants the National Security Advisor to swing into action to guarantee a peaceful election. In Kogi State, the People's Democratic Party governorship candidate, Senator Dino Melaye, is asking security agencies to deploy adequate security for the safety of lives during the November 11 off-cycle election in the state. Senator Melaye said this during a visit to families of those who lost their lives during the 2019 governorship elections in Lokoja, the state capital. He appeals to the state government to ensure that the elections are conducted under a conducive environment.
We call on the state government not to allow this type of dastardly acts to repeat itself again.
Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. And there you have it. You've been served with your political roundup stories. I told you earlier that what the president presented to the National Assembly, a 2.17 trillion 2023 supplementary budget, gets our attention tonight on the program, and we'll be dissecting these issues for you tonight. And of course, we'll be getting reactions from the presidency. Mr. Bayo Onanuga has been responding that, look, there are some items that need clarification, and of course, the National Assembly itself is clarifying some of these issues as Nigerians have raised dust over some of what has become yet unclear, the need for some of these items. Well, let's tell you that today, the National Assembly in both chambers passed the 2.17 trillion 2023 appropriation bill after a third reading. The Senate and the House of Representatives passed the bill after scrutinizing it, and the report of the harmonized document was sat on both the red and green chambers, and the bill submitted by the chairman of the Appropriations Committee in the Senate was Senator Solomon Olamileko Adeola. The bill was expeditiously scaled readings in both upper and lower chambers, as lawmakers says that it was for the benefit of the country. Take a listen.
Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to authorize the issue from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation of the total sum of 2,176,791,286,033 naira, only, of which 18 billion naira only is for statutory transfers, 125 billion 320,123 million, 1 trillion 125 billion 320 million 123,660 million naira only is for contributions to the Development Fund for capital expenditure for the year ending on the 31st day of December 2023.
All right, and you heard the Senate President and the intentions of the President as the budget, the document, and the details of that document has been presented to the National Assembly, of course. We'll get to analyze some of what has happened today in both chambers of the National Assembly. Of course, you know, in the remainder of 2023 is November and December. There are also the anticipation that the 2024 budget will be presented to the National Assembly for them to scrutinize. But before we get into that, there is a matter that is of concern for the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Nigeria's main opposition party, and it's about one of our major conversations yesterday in respect of President Tinubu's nomination to the Independent National Electoral Commission. The spokesperson of the PDP today addressed the press, and they're really not happy about those persons, their background, their history, and their political alignment, especially as it relates to the nomination into INEC. Take a listen to Debo Uluguagba.
We've invited you again today to expose a dangerous design by the ever-scheming All Progressive Congress to perpetuate itself in power by annexing and manipulating the operations of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Of particular concern is the brazen imposition of a card-carrying member and prominent leader of the APC in Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Etekamba Umoren, as the INEC Resident Electoral Commissioner for Akwa Ibom State, despite the loud and widespread outcry.
All right, then, you heard the People's Democratic Party and their position on this matter. Of course, what this portends for our democracy and our elections ahead of the governorship elections that we hold on the 11th of November, which is up weekend. Now, what are the issues that are being raised? Of course, we'll be dissecting that for you tonight on the program also. But let's take a breather. When we come back, my guests will be joining us to dissect the issues of the budget for us, the supplementary budget, the 2.17 trillion, and what this means for Nigeria's economy. And of course, some of the concerns Nigerians have raised. We'll be right back, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's get to it. So the 2.17 trillion supplementary budget by that's passed today by the National Assembly gets us talking. Mr. Paul Alaje is an economist. He's with us virtually from Lagos. Thank you so much, Mr. Alaje, for joining us tonight on the program.
Yeah, thank you so very much for having me.
Thank you so much indeed. Bring us up to speed and give us an understanding of what this means. This budget is what the president under Bola Tinubu or the presidency or the federal government hopes to spend between now and December, or when the 2024 budget kicks off. Is that right?
Well, this budget is expected to add to what we had initially budgeted for. Recall that President Muhammadu Buhari had presented a budget last year, which, of course, from the presentation of President Bola Tinubu, it reveals that that budget, in spite of several worries we have about capacity of government to generate revenue, that budget has not been able to even meet its own revenue targets. As a result, we needed to add more to the budget. Some things are very clear from this budget. One, Nigeria has major revenue crisis. Two, in spite of government saying subsidy removal has been implemented, as well as evaluation of exchange rate, all may still not be well in the medium term and in the long run. Therefore, we have seen the president presented to the National Assembly some key areas, for instance, defense, works. We have seen student loan, which of course is completely new, and it was not envisaged by the last administration. What seems to have worried a lot of people remains the issue of vehicles, which of course is very clearly stated in that budget, and yachts, which have now become an issue of public debate. I've seen that the presidency is saying that yacht is not for the office of the president, perhaps it's from the Navy for security reasons. But this budget in itself, as when you look at the window from 1st of November, which of yesterday, till the end of 2023, is what a lot of people have concern about. And we should also recall that the MTEF for 2024 to perhaps 2026 seems to have also been passed. By implication, we should be expecting 2024 budget to also be presented. And National Assembly has promised that that budget will be presented, and they will ensure that before 31st of December, that budget is passed. By implication, going by what National Assembly has promised Nigeria, we can therefore say that this budget is supposed to be by 2023. A good thing, some things that I saw that are very good about that budget is the issue of Third Mainland Bridge infrastructure. I've also seen housing, and I must say that 100 billion naira voted for housing is abysmally small for the housing crisis that we have in Nigeria today. I think government will need to consider, especially in 2024 budget, because when you look at housing, it's a major employer of labor. We have employment crisis in Nigeria, and we also have a major infrastructure crisis in the country. I want to believe that even though it appears that these budgets are scaled through, but it's important for us to pick some lessons from it. The level of awareness among Nigeria seems to be unprecedented as regards the issue of budget. I was thinking that the mere supplementary budget may not attract so much attention, but to my surprise, the attention given to this budget is not particularly different from when the main budget was being presented.
Alaje, what I needed you to clarify first and foremost, before we delve more into the details, is that this is a supplementary budget meant to be spent for the remainder of the 2023 appropriation or budget cycle. Is that right?
Yes, it's supposed to be spent for 2023 appropriation cycle. What does that mean? In case 2024 is not passed as at when due, then this budget may extend. Again, even if it's passed and there are projects that have not been fully implemented in 2023 budget, the budget will still run its course. But clearly speaking, from the title and from the definition of budget in Nigeria, it for a year is adding to the original budget presented for 2023. And this is what I have not seen so much of it in the media. We need to combine this new budget to the old budget for us to now see how much in loans are we financing, are we talking about in our budget? Because there are just the same. It's for the same period of time. It's an addition. Speaking to laymen, it's an addition to the previous budget that is passed, which is 2023 budget.
So, I mean, now, my next question will be 2.17 trillion. Where is there any place in this budget where it's stated how this is going to be funded?
Already, before the budget is even passed, we have seen that about 100 billion has been borrowed through. We've seen open market operation with very interesting rate had gone up, which means borrowing have started in earnest. And you have also seen that government is expecting some loans to come from outside that are both positive and negative, so that it doesn't sound as if criticism is what we do on government. No, when such money is borrowed, sometimes it's going to, most of the time it goes to foreign reserve, and you see that foreign reserve will boost, not because we are produced or exported, not because of remittances coming from abroad, but because we are borrowed in hard currency, and what will be used domestically will be in naira. Unlike what we have seen in previous administration, I will not mention who was the head of government at that particular time, where state government have come to harass the federal government to release dollar to them. You know, some of the dollar that should have been in foreign reserve to release as equivalent of their portion of the national share. A lot has happened, but we are hoping that we will see a major difference so that we can see stability in naira in the coming period.
So give me an understanding, Mr. Alaje. In January of this year, former President Buhari signed 21.8 trillion 2023 budget. If I put the figure of the supplementary budget, which is 2.17 together, it takes me to about nearing the over 24 trillion. Is that right? That is what we'll be saying we have as a budget of 2023. Is that right?
Yes, it is right. So that is now what we have for 2023 budget, because we need to combine both the previous budget signed by President Buhari and what his predecessor, President Bola Tinubu, is putting into place. So it is these two budgets, because government is a continuum. Whether they are from the same political party or different political party, we are talking of government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So we have to put these two budgets together. And in future, what students will study in Nigerian university and those abroad, or what will be published by Bureau of Statistics, will be this figure, not the old figure President Buhari submitted, because there is a supplementary and it's still adding to our national expenditure for the year.
So give me an understanding also, Mr. Alaje, the debt burden that Nigeria has, the debt servicing part of this budget, the overhead, does it really make sense for a country that should be focusing more on infrastructure? In all of these 24 trillion or thereabout, we have a huge percentage that is going into debt servicing, isn't it?
Well, debt servicing is crazy and it's really very disturbing. When you look at the amount we'll be using to spend to service debt for this entire budget, I can tell you it's a lot of worry for Nigeria. Recall that first quarter of this year, we spent approximately 80%, and I'm just being charitable, of all revenue to service debt. By the end of this budget, 2023, both the main budget and supplementary budget, we might be spending of our revenue, we might be spending 60 to 70% of our revenue, not to buy vehicle for Mr. President, both the first and the second, no, not to fix pen for the Speaker of the House of Representatives, no, not to even change the seat of the Senate President, the President of Senate, no, it will be to service debt. In case we forget, when you look at what happened under Ways and Means, when humongous amounts had been released, to Nigerian government as against what the law was as at that time. Unfortunately, when I see this new budget, because this government is new, I don't know how they are going to quickly raise funds. It means we'll still have to go to debt market, maybe to raise funds locally or abroad, or to use open market operation, or to go to the exchange, or to approach the central bank, hoping when money comes from crude oil, under Ways and Means, but it's all the way raising debt to finance. And I think we need to start rethinking our energy for collection of debt, especially when we collect debt and the impact of debt on the economy. You see, this is what economy says about debt, and it's important. You know, we are at the very beginning of this administration. There are three key things that economists are bothered about, or economists bothered about, when it comes to issue of debt. First, what is debt to GDP? The debt to GDP in Nigeria is really very, very accommodating. We have less than 50%. About 40% or less is what we have as debt to GDP. But in economics, it is not sufficient condition. It is a necessary condition. It is not the sufficient condition. The second condition will be, what is our revenue component to debt service, which is what I just mentioned. When we need to spend more than half of our revenue, more than 60% of our revenue to service debt, then it no longer makes sense. Right. What economists say we should stay with is 1/3. The third, but the most important, in the last 8 years, what is the impact of debt? What percentage has debt increased, and what percentage has the overall economy, the impact of debt measurable has increased? The economy has only increased by 2 to 3%. Meanwhile, our debt collection has increased on the average, I'm talking per annum, on the average, by over 20%. The implication is that in spite of this humongous amount that we have collected as debt, the impact is not getting directly into our economy and into our country.
All right. Now, let's look at the little devil in the details. Like they say, the devil is in the details. Now, it looks like we're a country that loves buying vehicles. And there are a lot, Nigerians are already talking. By the way, the boats that a lot of Nigerians has raised eyebrows about, the presidency is already clarifying the issues. For example, the National Assembly said they've removed that item and now taking it to replace it with student loan. And the student loan item is, in fact, supposed to be 10 billion. So they added, that was supposed to be 5 billion. They put it another 5 billion to make it 10 billion. Now, the presidency, through Bayelsa Onuga, who released a statement today, said, look, that as being a proposition from the President Buhari era, because government is a continuum, the president had, in fact, reduced the budget from that item from 200 billion to 62 billion. That is President Tinubu reducing that item. Also, they went further to say it is not just a luxury boat, that it is a boat that has security paraphernalia or the security features that could be used by the Nigerian Navy. From this explanation, Mr. Alhaji, this is a security, because they've told us now that it is a security item. What do you make of it?
Well, I think communication for me is very key. The way the budget was presented, it was not properly presented and communicated. You know, one of the things that we must be very careful of is issue of security, because one of the reasons why we are not having enough investors in Nigeria today, especially investment in real sector, are just security concerns around Nigeria. What international television is saying about us is as though when you walk on the street of your house, you will automatically be kidnapped, or there is a bullet coming somewhere to take you down. Nigeria has a huge population. Even though we have our challenges, these challenges are not they are not unique to Nigeria. They are ubiquitous. Even though the concern of many is what Nigerian authority is doing about this level of insecurity. So I'm just trying to play, a balance in there. So here is it. It's as though government is being reactionary. It's after Nigerians had complained that government is coming forward to say, oh, sorry, wait a moment. I think the National Assembly has saved the day by removing that item. And my advice is that if this item is so important and it's for security, it should go directly into the next budget 2024, while those that can convince the National Assembly security expert, we go there, we explain to the Committee of National Assembly why this should be voted for, why this should be procured by the Nigerian government, why we need it, what makes our waterways to be unsafe, what we'll be losing if this is not done. These are the things point and speak to Nigeria from the point of security and economy. These are two major ailments that this economy is facing right now. Any economy that is not that is not safe, automatically the economy will come down, no matter how wealthy the nation may be. And in case you don't know, two countries are currently chasing Nigeria's position as the largest economy in Africa. Of course, South Africa is there and Egypt is there. And South Africa, in spite of high inflation, is growing so fast that we are worried that they may take the position of the largest economy in Nigeria. If Nigeria is not going to rebase, I think that overtaking will happen between 2024 and 2025. So we need to push the right narratives forward for Nigeria if that particular item must be in it. I must also say kudos to the National Assembly by saying they have added to the student. I think rather than just making it student loan, we have a lot of decadence in our universities. And I was, of course, I had one of my first degree was actually in Nigeria, in one of the universities in Nigeria, particularly Obafemi Awolowo University. And I can tell you what our parents used in terms of facility in the university for science students, for social science students, for law students, for all. And I'm not speaking for one university. I'm speaking of at least all federal university. That money should have been voted. You know, in a matter of 1 or 2 years, you will see ASU come back to say we are going on strike because facilities are getting decayed, because facilities are not being renewed by the federal government and their employer. I think the National Assembly should use this as a window to look at those critical concern of ASU and vote that 5 billion naira into critical infrastructure in the university to solve challenges. Why our graduates, why are they not competitive in terms of engineering? When they go abroad, all the theories and something have been learned in Nigeria, they put in place, they have the right environment. The same with our medical doctors, they have the right environment and they try. Hardly will you see a developed country and you see their facilities that Nigerians are not very good at what they are doing. What is the challenge? Why can't we bring the technology that seems to be missing? If we can procure this the same, whether with equipment for medical students or engineering students or any student that needs this, which I think beyond salary increase has been the clamor for ASU as a board.
Now, I like us to wrap up on this note. And this is one area that the question marks have also been raised. There is a lot of outcry over the 28 billion allocated to the State House. And there are also the budget for 28 billion for the purchase of luxury cars for the presidency and the First Lady, as well as renovation of the president's residence, among other spending for the State House. That on one hand. The other one is also the planned spending of 2.9 billion on sports utility vehicles for the presidential villa and another 2.9 billion to replace operational vehicles for the presidency. What do you make of those items?
Well, I can say that it comes with a lot of worry for me, especially the vehicles and the vehicles and the vehicles. I've studied the last 6 budgets in the last administration. The reoccurring thing is vehicle and vehicle and vehicle. And I'm wondering if vehicles are used per year or 2 years and they abandon and another vehicle, is that time we started questioning the old vehicles that we had or that have been procured? Where exactly are they? Because I believe they cannot just vanish. Are we getting value, even if we say we must, political office holder must drive brand new vehicles? What happened to the ones that were there before? And this is an issue that must become part of our legislation. If not, it becomes a culture. I've heard you interview a senator that was saying that even the kind of vehicle being used, they've been upgrading it over the time. But the roads are not getting upgraded, but the poor are getting poorer. What seems to be consistent as we're increasing the number of vehicles is a number of people that are becoming, living below poverty line, not my figures, but the figure coming from National Bureau of Statistics, figure coming from UNDP, figure coming from IMF and World Bank, which they have used in their data open time, is that those living below the poverty line are increasing. Those living in multidimensional poverty are increasing in spite of new vehicles and things that government is. Let me tell you why. It is because most of those vehicles are imported. They are not made in Nigeria. So if they are made in Nigeria, jobs would have been created here, opportunity would have been created there. So the dollar that is scarce, we will have to exchange to buy and give these monies to another economy. What we are telling the economy is keep growing, we will keep using. This is so true. Beyond the presidency, the entire Nigerian system, we continue to import. We have one of us producing cars in a car in Nigeria. We have another company in Nigeria. Leadership is by example. We must start to demonstrate that if we want to use 5-10 cars, let's start by saying from these 5-10 cars, can we start 50% that will be made in Nigeria? I saw it in the Nigerian military, some of the local vehicles, and I was so excited when I saw the paramilitary and the military using some, not all their vehicles, but some of the vehicles are made in Nigeria. I don't want to mention brand name, on a live television because it's a commercial issue. So can we, as leaders of our country, legislature, start to use made in Nigeria so that we can grow this economy? We cannot talk of growing the economy, and we are doing the exact opposite. To talk about the structure and innovation that the president wants to, maybe there is no time. When time permits, maybe on another platform, we will have conversation about the real estate that government wants to fix. And I hope that all will be well with Nigeria as a matter of time.
Paul Alaje, economist, thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. I appreciate you shedding light on some of these. Of course, members of the National Assembly supposed to also give their own insight on the reasons behind. I'm hoping that we'll be able to have a drill with them on some of these items and the reasons for the passage. It was expedited, yes, for the interest of Nigeria, but at what cost? And what are the reasons and the sense behind all of this? Nigerians need to scrutinize. And that's why we're having this conversation. Thank you so much, Paul Alaji, for your time tonight.
Thank you so much, Fadi.
Earlier today, at the presidential villa, President Bola Tinubu, alongside some leaders of the APC, received and gave flags to the candidates of the APC in Imo, Kogi, and Bayelsa. Opuzodema of the APC in Imo, Usman Ododo, of the candidate of the APC in Kogi, and Timi Perez Silva, the candidate of the APC in Bayelsa State, were presented with the flag, the party flag, at the presidential villa by President Bola Tinubu, and he advised them that this election has to be free and fair.
As an attempt to mix up partisan politics or an attempt to blackmail my government. But I can tell you that my people are already aware. That was why the Nigerian Labour Congress, Imo State chapter, addressed a work press conference that what their national leadership is saying is not correct and that they are not going to do any strike or protest. And in the process, they decided to dissolve them, to put in a caretaker. Of course, I'm the chief security officer, and I have a responsibility to intervene. What has happened is this ugly coincidence that the national president of the Nigerian Labour Congress is from Imo State and has not been able to demarcate the difference between being a national leader of an organization and then an interested party in local politics.
The APC won clearly. Nobody could even challenge that victory. They went to court and challenged the credentials of a 7th senator who was now our deputy governor-elect, and they annulled the result based on that. That deputy governor-elect served out his term as senator, and nobody challenged it. So his credentials were good enough to serve as senator, but they were not good enough to serve as deputy governor. So this time, they have come with the same strategy, going through the courts, but I can assure you that we are going to win and we are going to keep the victory.
His Excellency Alhaji Bello is from Kogi State. I'm from Kogi State. We hail from the same local government, but different district. We are both from Okene local government. He is from Okene 1 district. I'm from Okene 2 district. And at that, Even if I am his direct son, I think the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria does not in any way prohibit anyone to contest for any position as far as this country is concerned.
All right, you heard the three candidates from the three states representing the APC. They were at the presidential villa earlier today, and each of them, they spoke about issues relating to their situation in their different states. The other day, we had a conversation with the candidate of the APC in Bayelsa State, Timmy Peresi. But tonight, let's get a sense of what is happening in the camp of the PDP. I'm being joined by the spokesperson of the PDP governorship campaign in Bayelsa State, Alfred Kemapada. Join us on the program tonight. Thank you so much, Alfred, for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Are you guys ready for this election?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah. You heard what Mr. Silver said about the plans of the PDP trying to use the back door to find a possible way of disqualification on the APC candidate. Is that a tactic to use legal means by which similar to what happened the last time 4 years ago?
No, I don't know why anybody would describe our legal system as a backdoor. It's just the judiciary playing out what was presented before. It's no backdoor.
I mean, is your team looking at it as an easier way to win the election?
The easiest way to win the election is to win him at the polls. Because, Shehu, recall, we had elections in March this year. And before the elections, you remember that, of course, all states have the statutory 3 senators. The PDP had 2, the APC had 1. Bayelsa State has 5 House of Reps members. The PDP had 3, the APC had 2. I mean, before the February-March general elections. But because of the sterling performance of the current governor, effortlessly and seamlessly, now the PDP in the state has the 3 senators, they have the 5/5 House of Reps members, and other legislative seats in the state.
100%.
100%. So what it just tells you, like, it's a rehearsal, okay? You know, the efforts of the governor, not just in the area of infrastructure, but the efforts at unifying Bayelsas, uniting Bayelsas, and letting Bayelsas understand that our development comes before politics, irrespective of your party line, irrespective of your creed or your religion, has been able to endear Bayelsans to the governor. And if you want to talk about areas of infrastructure, the governor has done fantastically well. Don't forget that the governor came into governance at the time COVID just started. So he just had to change strategies. And one of the things he's been able to do is to try to open up the states to other economic opportunities. Because, you know, Bayelsa is a riverine state in the Niger Delta that sits on the various littoral opportunities. And by that, the governor has been able to take on projects that hitherto people think it will not dare except the federal government, trying to reach Bayelsa into the Atlantic Ocean. For example, the Brass Senatorial Road, a road that the previous governor, who was your guest here, had described in a public function, and everybody knows that it's not economically viable. The governor has taken on that road, and you know how much that kind of massive project and the impact it will have on the people of the Eastern Senatorial District where he comes from. And let me also tell you, Shehu, surprisingly, unlike the other aspirants who promise and fail, the governor is taking on even projects that he did not promise, such as this multi-billion naira Brass Road that is taking road to Brass. I followed him throughout his campaign in the first tenure. These were not things that were promised, but out of necessity, he's taking it. And these are not just mere projects. Shehu, you understand our environment very well. Most times, we don't have road. You first create the road and construct the road on the road you have created. So the road going to Brass is actually on the Atlantic, is actually going through the mangroves to the Atlantic Ocean. And it's not just a road. The plan is to reach out to Brass, make it a city, to take advantage of the littoral opportunities in the Gulf of Guinea. Considering the President Tinubu's mantra of reaping more funds for the country, the Gulf of Guinea has a potential of fisheries not less than $7.5 billion. So the governor is taking these things to ensure that Bayelsa no longer depends on just the federal revenue, but we now begin to generate and create the kind of economy in Bayelsa that will also contribute to the revenue of Nigeria. And that's same with what is going on in Southern Nigeria, and of course the one going on in the Supplementary axis going down to Agay, where we'll eventually have a seaport. So these are strategic projects.
Let me jump in quickly. And all of this that you describe the performance of the governor as sterling.
Yeah.
And how do you then explain the downward slope and the downward revision of the economy of the state, which is in the negative? And in the recent report by Budget, in the State of the State report, Bayelsa State is the second state with the most dependency on federal allocation. It then means that with the meager resources the state is getting from IGR, it may find it difficult to survive without federal allocation. When you say sterling, is economic performance part of your own indices for the performance of the governor?
You see, Shehu, one thing you must understand is governance is about being strategic. Like you have said, the Bayelsa state government is one of the governments that relies more on the federal allocation. And this governor, Senator Doyodiri, thinks it shouldn't be so.
Despite the fact that it's an oil-producing state,
you don't want to, hold on.
The wealth in terms of the resources,
hold on.
the waters around it that could be wealth.
I'm coming now. You don't want us to go into that oil production factor, because if we go into that factor, we'll begin to go into the issues of how we have the oil wells in the Bayelsa, we have all the mine, but the oil wells, but the revenue is scattered away by the federal government.
What about
the
derivation?
The derivation,
the money that comes from oil to the oil-producing states.
No, the oil.
What is it being used for?
Good. That's exactly what we are.
For those who describe and say, look, with all of this money that goes into Bayelsa State, nothing is visibly seen. How can your party, or does your party, the government of the day, explain to the Bayelsa people that is bringing governance to the people?
Within the past less than 4 years of Doyodiri, the monies that have been coming to the state, obviously, like the states, the people of the state are applauded, are going into the visible projects that I have mentioned. Now, what I was trying to tell you is that governance is about strategy. So in order not to just depend on federal allocation, that is why the governor is not just taking on petty projects, but mega projects that will open the state to the blue economy, so that we can rake in more income, create more jobs, so that people, both the state and the people, can be less dependent on federal allocation. And that's the strategic approach of the government.
Let me give
and that
you
is
some
what has
figures.
endeared him.
Let me give you some figures that doesn't make the government look good at a time. And some of the figures include the fact that at the moment, 89% of the about 2.5 million population of Bayelsa State is considered to be multidimensionally poor. Is the second highest rate among the 36 states of the Federation. Guess what? Amongst the states of the Federation, do you know that the unemployment rate in Bayelsa State is pegged as about 37%? It's even above the national average, which is a little above 30%. How do you explain the rate, the high unemployment rate, and the level of poverty? Okay. The figure here is mind-boggling.
Okay, it's all right. You know,
89% of the population.
Okay, 89%.
Described as multidimensionally poor in Bayelsa State.
Okay. It's all right, Shehu. If you let me answer, let me tell you something. Sometimes when we hear these statistics, we begin to wonder where the statistics is coming from. Like Bayelsa and like the Niger Delta, the problem with that region is that some people sit down in Abuja and other places and write reports without knowing nothing about the people. And I'll give you this. The statistics in the National Bureau of Statistics shows that of the states, okay, in the Niger Delta, apart from Edo State, Bayelsa State is the state that employs more. So I don't know how that reconciles with this, okay? And these are not just states, these are oil-producing states. And I don't know, even beyond statistics, if you get into Bayelsa, you have been there a couple of times. How could anybody tell you that 89% of the people are poor. If that is what, excuse me,
out of the 200 million, just a moment, out of the over 200 million Nigerians, statistics show that over 130 million are multidimensionally poor in Nigeria. In Bayelsa State, 89% is said to be multidimensionally poor.
But that's not true.
Do you have your own statistics?
Of course, I just gave you the statistic that the employment rate across the Niger Delta states, considering Rivers, Akwa Ibom, Ondo, Edo, all of them, Bayelsa, only Edo has more employment rate than Bayelsa. Bayelsa is the most employed. The statistics is there. National Bureau of Statistics.
Look at what is on the screen.
What's
Bayelsa State, it shows the performance of index. This is the budget report.
Between you and I, Shehu, let me tell you something. Shehu, I just told you on set here that sometimes people sit down in places not knowing anything about our people, both in security reports and in economic reports. Just write what is superfluously lie.
So you don't agree with the MBS report? You don't agree with the budget report?
I don't think you
don't agree with the WS.
What do you say?
These are the MBS report, the multidimensional poverty.
You mean the National Bureau of Statistics?
Yes, that's what the multidimensional report.
Hold on. That's why I asked you. But the MBS rated us as a second state with the highest rate of employment. So how does highest rate of employment reconcile with poverty? It doesn't make sense. But you see, Shehu, I just want us to rest on that. What is most important is that amidst the prosperity, amidst the employment that has been generated in the state now, the governor at the moment is opening up the state to more economic opportunities, has created the peace in the state. And of course, in discussing Bayelsa and other places, you can't talk about economic development anywhere without peace and the return of industries that will tick that economy. And that's what the governor is doing, and that's why the people are excited to go with him all along. You should be asking me the questions. What about the other aspirants? They were governors in the state for about 5 years. What did they put on ground? I heard one of their spokesmen talk about how during his tenure, that within his 5 years tenure, he received about 800 million naira. And it's just tickling my mind that at that time, the dollar rate was about 180 naira or less. So if you convert that money to today, at today's dollar rate, we are talking about a whooping sum of about more than 4 trillion naira. And there is nothing to show for over that money, that period. But within less than 3 years, you can see Governor Doyediri taking on mega projects that will bring economic prosperity to the state and unifying the state.
Let's wrap up now, Alfred. I mean, I'm asking these questions, and a lot of Bayelsans who are watching right now perhaps might be able to relate and be in their minds pondering on the issues that are important as they go to the poll. What gives you the confidence that this time around the issue of incumbency has even been a negative issue, because a negative effect on elections? In fact, where you think that an incumbent will get re-elected, it goes in the other direction. What gives you the confidence that this time around, Doyediri will be the choice of the Bayelsans?
Now, the acceptability of Doyediri is Catholic. It's known everywhere in Bayelsa. And like I said in my intro, okay, the last elections that took place, I told you, because of his sterling performance, almost all the seats were swept. But Shehu, the question I had even expected you to ask me again is that how come that while we are talking about the votes and how people can vote, others are on national TV reinforcing the fact that they are coming to Bayelsa to kill and maim people and throw them into the Brass River? I heard you interview the APC governorship aspirant here, and you took him on that. And he told you that the deputy governor who came out in the public to say that any person who comes to Brass or anything, kill him and throw him into the river is not first person to that. He was only talking about people who will come there and misbehave. So the question you will ask is, when did people who come and misbehave become a subject of their own killing? Are they taking laws into their hands? What I expect you to talk about is the deployment of adequate security in Bayelsa so that people can go about their peaceful elections, because the security of this election is not just about the election. Don't forget that post-election, the arms and thugs that are being purchased for election will become the remnants that will constitute the pipeline vandals, the militants, and the kidnappers. And that does not tie into Mr. President's agenda for a more peaceful Niger Delta, for an upward production of oil. It does not secure the Niger Delta. Those are the questions we should be asking. Why would, in this currently, where the Inspector General of Police said he has assumed office feeling like a lion, why would the Chief of Defense Staff, fine gentleman, said the terrorists that will terrorize Nigeria tomorrow should not live beyond today? Under their watch and under the watch of the DSS and everything, aspirants are threatening and
so you have
people
fear
should be killed.
About security.
I have fear about the loss of life in the course of prosecuting an election because Governor Doyejiri, like all of us, and like the Goodluck Jonathan said, no ambition is worth anybody's life. And this election, I tell you, is also, because I know President Tinubu to be a Democrat, it's also President Tinubu's opportunity and chance to restore the confidence of Nigerians in the electoral system. So these are the things that we should also talk about. But if you come to Bayelsa in terms of its performance in the area of education, infrastructure, everything, leave it. They will not win one local government.
Alfred Kemapade is a spokesperson of the Bayelsa PDP governorship campaign. Thanks so much indeed.
Thanks
and
for
I wish
having
you
me.
and your team and your candidate the very best. Thank you so much indeed
Thanks
for coming
for having
tonight.
me.
But that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'll see you tomorrow at 7 p.m. God bless Nigeria.